Olympic athlete and beloved track coach searches his yard for an intruder.
I didn't see it, but there were shots.
You heard what?
There were shots.
Police find him shot to death in his own yard.
A burglar was in the backyard. You don't know what to think. You're just like, okay, what is going on? What's happening here?
Just as important as who shot Dave Laut is why they shot him 6 times.
Based on the way the news description was, I knew right away who I thought would have done it.
Oxnard, California. Nestled on the Pacific Coast Highway between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, this city of 200,000 is known for its strawberry fields, ocean living, and a harbor that serves at the closest point to Channel Islands National Park.
The city of Oxnard is in Ventura County. It wasn't the most opulent neighborhood in the world, but it was a place where you could raise a family, be comfortable, know your neighbors.
It's not a huge place, so you pretty much knew everybody there. My dad, he taught at Hueneme High School for, 30 plus years. And then my brother taught there also. That's pretty much Oxnard.
There are very nice parts of Oxnard where there's beautiful housing on the beach, near the beach, on like a river walk type area. And there's some really rough parts of Oxnard with tenement housing, with people living very close together with a lot of crime.
It's almost midnight on August 27th, 2009. In a middle-class Oxnard neighborhood, Jane Laut hears a noise coming from outside the house. She asks her husband, Dave, to go outside and see what's going on. What happens next is recorded in a frantic 911 call from Jane.
911 emergency, this is Galen. What are you reporting?
Somebody was in our backyard.
All right, what the person look like that was in your backyard?
I didn't see it, but there were shots.
You heard what?
There were shots.
You heard shots being fired?
Yes. My husband went outside.
I want you guys to stay inside the house. Is everyone in your house accounted for and in your house?
My husband's still outside.
Dave Laut is already outside and in the line of fire.
Oh my gosh, everybody knew Dave. I always say, like, ever since I was a little kid, he's my Superman. He was very well liked by classmates and teachers and just counselors and people at church. You know, he was just very well spoken, really considerate.
Dave Laut grows up in Oxnard, the son of a biology teacher who also coaches athletics.
Dave was an athlete. He was driven by a very demanding father to be the highest he could be in track and field.
We kind of come through a coaching kind of, background. So, the coaching goes with the sport thing. And Dave was a very, very good athlete. He was going to go someplace or do something at university level.
Jane and Dave Laut knew each other from high school. I think they were homecoming queen and king at their high school.
They were like high school sweethearts. They got along very, very well. They always seemed to just enjoy each other's company.
As Dave rises through the ranks of competitive shot put, he and Jane become high school sweethearts.
Jane came from a pretty well-off farming family. The Laubacher family is pretty prominent in Ventura County. They've been farming our county for years. They are one of the 5, I would say, most well-known agricultural families in our area.
They were ranchers. They had a big ranch. You could go out to the ranch, and even I did when I was a kid. I learned how to shoot out there. You could shoot like a .22 or, whatever. You shoot bottles or whatever.
After getting a scholarship at UCLA, Dave wins the NCAA shot put title and sets his sights on the Olympics. All the while, Jane is by his side. They marry in December 1980, and Dave sets his sights on the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles.
And he won a bronze medal in those Olympics.
It was a proud moment for me because I was like, oh my gosh, this guy just won a bronze medal. Like, this is incredible. And he was actually a little bit disappointed because he wants to like win. He's a winner.
I know he was frustrated with only winning the bronze. He thought he could have done better then, but the city of Oxnard was very proud of him. Matter of fact, the city of Oxnard hosted a big parade for him when he returned. People came out to shake his hand and stuff like that.
I remember hugging him and saying, I'm so proud of you, dude. You know, you did it. And he goes, I didn't really do it. I got third. I'm like, you won a bronze medal in the Olympics. You are a winner.
His career faded after the 84 Olympics because his body failed him.
While training to be a firefighter, Dave seriously injures both knees. He fails to make the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. Suddenly, his career as an athlete is over.
He just wasn't the same, you know what I mean? He did all the rehab, and he was getting older too. So, you know, trying to rehab both knees at the same time, he kind of knew he was done. So after that, he's like, okay, you know what? Well, I'm just gonna be a teacher. He was a biology teacher like my dad, teaching and coaching. Then he became the AD at Hueneme High School. And I've had a lot of kids come to me and tell me, you know, hey, I had your brother for a teacher, or hey, I had your brother for a coach. Oh man, he was the best.
In 1999, Dave and Jane Laut adopt a baby boy from South Korea. Their 10-year-old son sleeps in his room as Jane makes a terrified call to 911.
How many shots did you hear?
I don't know.
Like 1, 2, a bunch?
I heard a lot.
Lot?
Oh my God.
Jane, take a breath. Lock up.
It's outside.
Your husband is outside? Can you call to him? Tell him to come in?
He's on the side.
Okay, Jane, stay with me. I have officers there. I have 2 officers there. I want you to stay inside the house.
2 officers arrive at the house. They're looking for an intruder in the backyard. They're young officers. You can imagine how scary that would be if you thought there were potential gunmen. It's pitch black back on that side yard. There's no lighting.
Police discover Dave's body on the ground with blood pooling around his face.
They find Dave dead, lying by the barbecue.
He's face down with his arm tucked underneath him. It's possible that Dave is still holding the gun.
Police initially believe this might be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But as more police arrive, they discover a gunshot wound in Dave's back.
You can't shoot yourself in the back. Police now know that Dave Laut was shot more than once and that somebody else shot him.
Jane was interviewed at the scene by a patrol officer, by a detective, then brought to Oxnard PD, interviewed for almost an hour and a half by another detective, at the time the detective in the case.
We went back to bed, and then he got up and said he thought he heard something. He said, there's something going on in the backyard. And then he says, put the dogs, get the dogs, keep the dogs in with Michael.
If there was somebody in the backyard, would you let the dogs out?
Maybe. He started to go off where the trash cans were.
Jane tells police she hears a man's voice and then 3 shots.
I heard him say something, you know, what the and then I heard some shots, so I shut the door and I ran.
What the F? That's what Jane hears outside. Then she calls 911 after the gunshots. She's in shock when police arrive.
We were notified, I believe it was the next morning, pretty early, like 5-ish, something like that.
This is Detective Sanchez with Oxnard Police Department.
Hi.
I'm sorry to be calling you this early, and unfortunately the reason I'm calling is there was an incident that occurred at David's house.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to say, but he's passed.
What happened?
At this point, it's still under investigation, but it appears that he was shot.
So now you start processing in your head, like, how could this happen? And, you know, what's going on? We drove out to the house, and then they had all of the the tape and everything all out. Cops were out and whatnot. And they proceeded to tell us what happened about a burglar. They didn't tell us too many details at the time. They seemed to be very, just kind of holding things back.
When the officers arrived on the scene, they found the victim on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds, as well as pooling around his head. No casings or weapon were recovered on the scene initially. They also found bullet strikes or ricochets on both the wall and the ground surrounding the victim. And additionally, they found hair, blood, and tissue adhering to trash cans around near where the victim was located.
Look, if Dave Laut found someone creeping around in his yard, would he have been shot multiple times in the head and then once in the back? Police know there's more to this story. Just as important as who shot Dave Laut is why they shot him 6 times. Jane said she closed the door and then heard a man's voice and then shots.
That's where the gun came from. It came from my dad.
It's going to take a skilled investigator to get at the truth.
In 2009, Oxnard, California, north of Los Angeles. Dave Laut, Olympic shot putter and beloved high school teacher, goes outside to investigate a noise.
Police find him face down in a pool of blood, shot multiple times, including once in the back. Would a prowler lurking around the yard do that?
A community is shocked by the murder of its Olympic hero. The students and staff at Dave's high school come to a memorial to share their shock and grief at his death.
I've never seen a funeral like that, ever. It was a gymnasium at the high school, and there were so many people there. There was people that I haven't seen in years that came to Dave's funeral. And, of course, they were, very remorseful and sad. And what was being said at that time was that he was, killed by a prowler. One of the people that went up there to talk about it talked about how, it's tragedy these days that, you can't even go in your backyard to go throw the trash away, and then you have a prowler in your backyard who shoots and kills you.
Jane and her family don't attend the memorials for Dave.
She wasn't at the funeral, and nobody from her family was at the funeral. That was like going, what's going on?
Fearful that Dave's violent murder is by an unseen stranger who is still at large, the community holds a candlelight vigil.
Once again, Jane Laut doesn't come out to the vigil, and the stress must be overwhelming for her. The police are wondering if it's more than grief that's keeping her away.
As police interviewed Jane Laut, they noticed changes in her story.
I stood right on the edge of the grass, and he said, "Put your butt in the house." He's going towards the cave.
Okay, then what happens?
I went in the house. I heard the shots, so I slammed the door.
Earlier in the 911 call, Jane said she closed the door and then heard a man's voice and then shots.
Okay, did you shut the door and then hear the shots, or did you hear the shots and then shut the door? What were the dogs doing?
Bill was laying next to his dad.
What did they do when they heard the gunshots?
I don't know.
Did you hear them barking at all?
I don't remember them barking until the police came.
Jane's description of the dog's reaction is an interesting detail. It's common knowledge that dogs have exceptional hearing.
Depending on the particular dog and how familiar it is with sharp, loud noises, it will usually bark or maybe even howl. If the noise was loud enough and close enough, the dog might have even found a place to hide.
Police look for clarification on the gunshots Jane heard.
Well, you've been around guns, you've been around gunfire. What did this sound like?
It sounded like a pop. Like, quick.
How many pops did you hear?
3.
Were they, describe them to me, how fast they were?
Pop, pop, pop.
Okay. It wasn't pop, has hesitation pop, and hesitation pop, it was 123.
I mean, not like that. You know, I think.
Okay.
Jane says she hears 3 rapid-fire shots, and that might suggest that a semi-automatic or an automatic weapon was used.
So initially on the scene, no casings were located around the body, so that's typically indicative of either a revolver being used or someone picking up the casings. On the scene, they recovered bullets, and they were able to determine that they were .22 caliber class.
The .22 caliber class of ammunition is easily the most common ammunition in the world.
A lot of times with the smaller caliber bullets, because they're so small and light, they cause a lot of damage in the body because they ricochet around a lot.
Do you have any guns in the house? How many guns do you guys have?
Some shotguns in the gun safe. And then there's a gun in the box. There's a shotgunny thingy in the box closet.
As part of their investigation, police use a gunshot residue kit to gather evidence.
So when a firearm is discharged, these particles can tell you if a person recently fired a weapon, recently handled a weapon, or if they were in close contact to a weapon when it was discharged.
Police are getting ready to test Jane for gunshot residue when she disappears.
She's in the bathroom washing her hands, and before the detective can stop her, she wipes her hands on the towel. This is very unusual behavior.
Gunshot residue is highly transient, so it's easily removed by rubbing the hands or washing them, which could skew the results of the test.
But police do discover several rounds of unfired .22 caliber ammunition in the residence.
The unfired bullets that were found at the scene ultimately will be of little use as far as evidence goes, but the gunshot residue that was found will ultimately prove to be much more useful.
Then, police make a startling discovery.
When searching the house, there were numerous weapons recovered, including a .22 caliber revolver that was found hidden in a grandfather clock.
And that's not something you would expect to see every day.
It's typical of a cowboy-style gun that you may see in the movies.
It was my dad's gun that he had given Dave. Yeah, I don't know if it was a Christmas present. That's where the gun came from. Came from my dad.
And so that was the main suspect weapon that was compared.
So a prowler lurking around a yard isn't going to take Dave's gun and shoot him with it and then go into Dave's house and hide that gun in a grandfather clock.
Do you know where all the guns are in your house?
I think most of them are, I think they're all in the gun cabinet. And then he did have one, that handgun thing on the shelf, but I told him when Michael arrived, he said he put it somewhere else.
Dave Laut's loving wife, Jane, the homecoming queen, becomes the prime suspect in his murder. Does she pull the trigger?
You know how to shoot?
Yeah.
It sounds like you have a gun safe. Sounds like you keep the guns locked
It's
up.
supposed to be in there.
I mean, you're not gonna have something in your house, you're not gonna use it.
No.
Especially like that, right?
No.
One thing is for sure, investigators have a long way to go to solve this murder.
Oxnard, California. Olympic shot putter Dave Laut investigates a noise in his yard.
How many shots did you hear?
I don't know.
Like 1, 2, a bunch?
I heard a lot.
Her story to the police was that they heard somebody outside and that they heard an intruder. Dave went outside. She heard gunshots. She called 911.
Police find Dave's body, shot in the head and back.
Jane does wash her hands and ultimately may have washed away any gunshot residue, making the test worthless. But on the night of the murder, they do find clothing that does come back with residue on it.
So when a firearm is discharged, primer residues, vaporized lead, and burned and unburned gunpowder are expelled from the barrel of the firearm. These particles can tell you if a person recently fired a weapon, recently handled a weapon, or if they were in close contact to a weapon when it was discharged.
Now, Dave's wife, Jane, has become the prime suspect.
There was a point where they said, we think that she did this. And it's like, you're going, oh my gosh. So that kind of hit you too, like, wow. So now you start processing in your head, like, how could this happen? And, you know, what's going on?
They find a gun hidden away in the grandfather clock. If it is the murder weapon, there's only one person that could have hidden it there, and she's currently talking to police.
This is a very, very, very serious situation here. And we have other detectives at your house right now. I sat here and I listened to your story, and I gotta say, it doesn't match up with what's out there. The sequence of events that you gave us, compared with the evidence that's there, don't really add up. Looking at it objectively, there are flags that come up that don't match and don't make sense.
Despite Jane's obvious exasperation with the questioning, police continue to press her for more information.
I don't know what else you want.
Well, there are some things you're leaving out. I asked you about your relationship. And I'm asking these questions for a reason. Is it abusive?
No.
Physically?
No.
Mentally?
Well, I don't get what you're getting at. I don't know what you want. All I want to do is get the hell out of here and go home.
You didn't get upset about anything until right now.
You don't know me.
I don't. And I told you that in the very
You
beginning.
know nothing about me. You don't know how I take things. You know nothing.
Don't be afraid to show emotions. Don't be afraid
I'm
to...
not afraid to show my emotions, but I'm trying to be strong.
Most of us can imagine what it would be like to be accused of something we didn't do. We'd feel shocked. We'd feel surprised. We really didn't do it. If you were continually accused, you might even start to get angry. The innocent person's biggest fear is not being believed. The guilty, however, have a different fear, the fear of being caught. Whether you're afraid of being disbelieved or you're afraid of being caught, the behavioral responses may be the same. They're both fear. It's going to take a skilled investigator to get at the truth.
What I'm saying is that you sat there pretty stoic and calm until I told you that what you're telling me and what we have are not matching up. If you truly didn't do it, then I don't understand why you're getting so upset now. If I was in your shoes, I'll take the polygraph. I'll show you I didn't do it. You go find the guys that killed my husband.
That's what I want.
You've never asked me that. You've never asked me once.
Investigators are finally able to get closer to the truth.
You want to take a polygraph?
Yeah, I don't care. I want to go home.
No, I'm asking you. Do you want to take a polygraph test?
Do I have to do it now?
No. Do you want to take one?
I'll do one, but I want to see my son. I just want to leave.
You don't just get to do what you want to do in a murder investigation. Our job right now is to find out who killed your husband. Okay? To look at everything objectively. We need to find out who killed your husband. We have to be thorough. Okay? And the best way, I think, for us to do that is you take a polygraph. He's here now. You're done. We move past you. We go to the next thing.
The story kept jumping and changing. One kind of didn't pan out, then another one would come out. She'd say, okay, well, this happened, and then that happened, and then it was, well, it was an accident.
While Jane now admits that she shot Dave, she says Dave threatens to shoot their son, so she wrestles the gun away from him. The ballistics investigation suggests that this is more than just an accidental discharge of a firearm.
The victim had 6 gunshot wounds to the body. One of them was a graze wound to the left parietal scalp. The victim also had 2 gunshot wounds to the right side of the face, one to the right cheek near the eye, and one below towards the middle part of the cheek. Both of these projectile paths exited the left side of the victim's face. The victim also had a projectile wound to the right upper back. The victim's incapacitating wound entered the right parietal scalp and was recovered from the left front brain.
He's twice as big as she is, and he's shot many times in the head and the back. This story still doesn't make any sense.
With police becoming increasingly suspicious of her, Jane meets with her attorney.
I said to her, Jane, you know, the only plausible explanation for what happened last night is that you shot him. I just need to know the why. It's not a whodunit. I just need to know the why. And then she broke down and told me what happened.
Jane says that Dave abuses her throughout their marriage, and as a battered spouse, she has to defend herself.
Jane said Jane and Dave's relationship was one of him dominating her. The way he perceived his life is that sheer job was to take care of him in every way possible. That's how Dave viewed her, and that's how, unfortunately, Jane at that time viewed herself.
But not everyone believes her claim of abuse.
We never saw any inkling of abuse at all. We'd spend birthdays and Christmases and things like that. Nope, no problems. You'd never see anything. She would never say anything.
The one thing Jane said, she lived in a very volatile relationship where she was physically, mentally, and sexually abused repeatedly over 29 years. So there was no happiness in that marriage. It was a violent, volatile relationship.
At this point, with the story still changing, police know they have to keep digging.
Jane and her attorney offer police a new version of events.
He comes out and he starts yelling at her, telling her that she does nothing for him, that she's worthless, and he has a gun, and he's waving the gun around. He pushes her around, and he tells her that he's gonna kill her and their son. When Jane tells the story to me initially, she's shaking, talking about it. She guides him outside to get him as far away from her son as possible. As they're backing up, Dave stumbles. Jane hits him like a linebacker, kicks him in the knee and tackles him down. And she gets the gun. And when she gets the gun, she decides that she's just gonna keep shooting until he stops. They struggle, he grabs her by the arm and squeezes her arm, and she shoots him.
It's another change in the story, and it's not the only possibility. Maybe she's not reacting to what Dave did in that moment, but she's rather executing a plan.
Dave's family, including Don Laut's wife, Rebecca, suggest that there is no abuse.
I also remembered a very crucial conversation that I had with her. And I remember early on I told you that I had asked her, kind of hinted if Dave ever hit her.
Yeah.
And I remembered the conversation. And I asked her, do you think he would ever hit you? And she said, I don't think so. I mean, I can hear it in my head so clear now. But she said she didn't think so. If I truly felt like she did this in self-defense, or if it was really that bad, I mean, there's just no way. Not anything ever did I ever think that she was in fear for her life, ever. And if she says that she was, she's lying. She is straight out lying.
If self-defense isn't the motive, then what really happens and why?
It was just horrible. She pretty much went out to go take this trash out, and she pretty much just kind of had a flashlight and just started bang, 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 bang.
If Jane Laut had intent, then it's murder. If the jury believes that she was acting in self-defense, then she goes free.
She goes back in the house. She's freaked out. She still thinks Dave's coming back. She doesn't think he's dead. She thinks he's coming back. So she hides the gun and she checks on their son. She comes back out and calls 911.
Both sides agree that Jane shot Dave and that she called 911 and that she hid the gun. But they don't agree on why she did it.
Can law enforcement use what they know about the gun itself to uncover the truth of what happens?
This is a single action revolver, which means that the hammer of the weapon has to be cocked before the trigger can be pulled. So each time the hammer needs to be pulled back and then the trigger needs to be pulled to make a round discharge.
How many pops did you hear?
3.
Were they describing to me how fast they were?
Pop, pop, pop.
Okay. It wasn't pop, hesitation, pop, and hesitation, pop. It was 1, 2, 3.
I think.
Okay.
Police know that this revolver requires time to cock back the hammer and pull the trigger. Every time a person firing this gun has to pull back that hammer and pull the trigger, and then pull the hammer back and pull the trigger again, they have time to think about what they're doing.
Jane had experience with the gun because Dave had taken her shooting with that gun multiple times. It was a gun that she was familiar with, and she knew how to fire it.
One method for firing bullets rapidly with a revolver is a technique called fanning.
Fanning is a technique that some shooters use to discharge a single action revolver and to discharge it quickly. It involves holding back the trigger of the firearm with one hand and using the palm of your other hand to strike the hammer repeatedly.
Does Jane have enough experience to use this fanning technique to rapidly shoot Dave?
The suspect claimed that she shot the victim in self-defense. However, due to the fact that the revolver was single action, so that the hammer needed to be pulled and then the trigger for every shot, this does indicate pre-thought and continuing to shoot the gun until it was empty.
Police don't find any DNA on the murder weapon, and they believe it's been wiped down for that very reason.
February 2010, police called Jane Laut back to the station.
Well, I've been working on this thing, Jane, for a long time. Since it happened. We put a lot of pieces together. As I know and you know, what you told us that night ain't the truth. You know?
Police charged Jane Laut with first-degree murder.
A warrant's been issued for your arrest. Okay, for murder. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Like I told you, you're under arrest for murder. Okay, you have the right to remain silent. You understand that?
A guilty verdict means a life sentence, and the use of a gun in the murder will double the sentence. Jane faces 50 years to life if she's found guilty.
She took a lot of money from my mom. $1,500 for this or $2,000 for that.
If they convict you, you're never getting out. You'll never hold your son again. You'll never hold your family again.
The stakes for Jane could not be any higher.
Along the Pacific Coast Highway in Oxnard, California, Jane Laut admits to shooting her high school sweetheart. Olympic shot putter Dave Laut. Jane fires all 6 shots in the single-action revolver. Gunshot residue found on clothing, as well as the ballistics evidence gathered from each shot, give police some clues about where Jane is and how Dave is positioned.
Jane Laut may have acted with intent or premeditation. The prosecutors don't know if there's an entirely different motive involved. And at this point, on the mind of a jury, they have to be concerned about reasonable doubt.
Prosecutors offer Jane a plea deal. Plead guilty to a voluntary manslaughter charge.
He offered us voluntary manslaughter, 11 years, no gun. And I said, make it 6 years. And he said his office would not do 6 years.
In California, a crime committed using a gun can mean an enhanced sentence of 10 to 25 years.
I get a call from the DA saying, we'll agree to the 6 years if she pleads tomorrow. Okay, 6 years of voluntary manslaughter means 3 years actual time. It's half time. Okay, so it's a 3-year sentence. This is the deal of the century. Okay, I literally celebrate.
That night, Ron gives Jane the good news about the reduced charge.
Jane tells me she doesn't want the deal. She wants to go to trial. She was resolute that she wanted to go to trial.
Jane tells her lawyer she wants to go to trial and be found innocent of any crime on behalf of abused spouses everywhere.
The stakes for Jane could not be any higher.
If they convict you, you're never getting out. You'll never hold your son again. You'll never hold your family again.
Jane refuses the plea deal, and her murder charge goes in front of a jury. Using forensic evidence, gunshot residue, and bullet trajectories, the prosecution tells the jury that Dave Laut is a sitting duck in the side yard.
A damaged lead bullet was found underneath the victim's body, which had threads from both his t-shirt and sweatshirt embedded onto the projectile, as well as fragments from the concrete. The wound was in contact with the clothing and the ground when it exited the body, consistent with the victim being on the ground when he was struck with this projectile.
This evidence doesn't look good for a self-defense case. If he's already laying on the ground when he's shot a final time, he's the one who's defenseless.
The victim had wounds to both the right and left side of his body, as well as some of the wounds being from front to back and some from back to front. Some of the wounds were close range, near contact to contact, where others were distant. So this indicates movement on the part of both the victim and the suspect.
I guess one of them like skived his ear, and then another one kind of popped his shoulder, and then like that's only two. So all of a sudden he kind of went down, and then she got him in the jaw, and now he's going down. So she's got 3 left, and he's like on all fours, and he's looking up, and she just kind of boom, boom, boom.
The prosecution suggests that Jane may have a financial motive for killing Dave.
Yeah, they had debt. Yeah, was Dave upside down financially? Of course he was. Was Jane ever going to be poor and homeless? No. Jane never wanted or could want for anything again. They had plenty of money. Her family was always going to take care of her.
Police asked Jane's mother about the family's finances.
You guys kind of kept in the dark about a lot of stuff?
Oh, yeah. I never questioned her when she needed money.
What did she tell you? Why did she need all this money?
Pay bills.
Police discover that Dave's mother is lending them money as well.
You know, Jane had been taking classes at Oxnard College, so that she was preparing to be, I guess, a preschool teacher. So I'm not really sure. It never got explained to me, but she needed money for tuition.
She took a lot of money from my mom. $1,500 for this, or $2,000 for that, or... And my mom would be like, okay, you know what? Didn't ask questions. She just gave it to her. Like, okay, you know what? If you need it, go ahead.
Then, a few months before the shooting, Jane asks Dave's mother for a big loan, $25,000.
There were definitely money issues at play here, but is that enough to suggest that Jane shot Dave for financial gain?
A prosecution witness testifies that Jane stands to collect almost $300,000 in insurance money from Dave's death. The defense presents its evidence to the jury that Jane is systematically beaten, abused, and raped over the 29-year relationship.
Jane Laut lived with a monster, and you're going to hear about it. You're going to hear in detail about what he did to her. You're going to hear in detail about how he treated her. You're going to be in detail how he hurt her. He is not the hero of the Olympics. He is the monster who abused her for 27 years. If you understand domestic violence, you understand the why in this case, and the why was that Jane was a domestic violence victim, was trying to save her son's life.
Jane Laut takes the stand to testify in her own defense and set the record straight. Olympic medal-winning shot putter Dave Laut is shot by his wife Jane, who is charged with first-degree murder. She claims to have done it to end decades of abuse at Dave's hand. But the prosecution suggests that this is no heat-of-the-moment act.
The way Dave is shot gives Jane time to think about her actions, according to the prosecution. They also believe that money was her motive.
Our theory was basically long-term domestic violence, which resulted in PTSD, which resulted in her believing that she had to defend herself at night when he pulled the gun. She was on the stand for 3 or 4 days. It was emotional. It was excruciating.
On the witness stand, Jane says that for 29 years, her husband beats, rapes, and degrades her. Jane says that Dave is the one who takes the money, and she has to borrow $25,000 to repay the school.
The defense shares all of this with the jury and pokes holes in the prosecution's case that this was about money.
Now the defense gives their side of the moments leading up to Dave's shooting.
Jane took her son and some other kids with some other moms to the beach in Oxnard. They had a beach day. And they got back late because the kids were having a good time. And Dave was home. He had been drinking. And he ran out of booze that day. He was mad at Jane for not being there to make him dinner. So around 7 o'clock, she makes him a hamburger. Dave throws the hamburger at Jane, saying it's not good enough, make him another one. He's raging in the house, he's yelling and screaming. He's calling her all kinds of names.
So how did that gun get into Jane's hands? Was it in the gun safe? Was it already hidden in the grandfather clock? Or did Dave have it and Jane wrestled it away?
The defense says Jane can rapidly shoot the gun in her hand, questioning whether she shoots Dave in the heat of the moment or has time to consider her actions.
The only dispute in the trial was the intent and self-defense and the mental issues of Jane Laut that she had.
In the end, it's all about how Jane gets the gun. It's all about how she uses the gun. It's all about what she does with the gun after she uses it. That helps the jury determine whether there's intent or not.
And while he was looking away from her, from a distance of several feet, she raised that revolver to the back of his head, and she fired that first shot.
They said it's one of the longest trials that they've ever had. It was like 11 weeks. It was a long time. It was tough. It was 11 weeks of that stuff, man. That was brutal. Like some days you came out of there and you felt like, okay, that was a great point. You felt good. Other days you just felt like, oh my gosh, this is horrible.
The jury returns their verdict. Jane Laut is guilty of first-degree murder.
They did an outstanding job. They were able to take and decipher all the stuff that was lies and put together what the truth was.
All that mattered was that there were 5 bullets in that guy, 2 in the back of his head, and the jury didn't accept self-defense.
After refusing a plea deal and a 6-year maximum sentence, Jane Laut is sentenced to 25 to life for the murder, as well as a gun enhancement of another 25 years.
I go back to that day she turned down the offer. I was in this conference room where I'm talking to you, sitting at this table to my left with her and begging her to take it, and her saying no. I failed her by not being able to convince her to take that deal.
Times you feel okay about it, like the justice system did its job, and it did all that it could do. But I still don't have a brother. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much bottom line. I mean, I've had people that come up to me, just like over the past few years, and just say, "Your brother was just such a good man." Not just because of what he did, it's just because of who he was. I mean, there's so many things that I still wish he was here.